First of all, let me thank QI, and especially Pradeep, for giving me opportunity to come on the dais and share my thoughts with you. As I've been introduced, I have nearly 27, 28 years of experience, all in testing and quality assurance. I have really seen how the quality has evolved in last nearly 3 decades. And I would be talking about what I have seen and what I'm predicting probably will be the role of the quality assurance and more about the role of the QAs in the emerging time. Now, I presume all of you are playing the QA or a testing role in your organizations. As you have seen, there are 3 things which is really very common, and we all talk about quality control, quality assurance, and specialized testing. One thing which we all really feel proud of when we find large number of defects, and that is what really motivates us, and that is the bread and butter for all of us. It's all about finding the defects. It's all about my application, my project. It's all about whether I'm able to certify it's a good quality or not. That was all focus about quality control. And then came the era of quality assurance, where we really thought that if the process is right, any product coming out of that process would also will be defect-free. And that's where the whole SCI, CMM, ISO 9000, Six Sigma, continuous improvement, and everything started coming in. And with all the technological changes happening, with all the complexity coming, and with all the threats of the security and other issues coming, the specialized testing like performance, regression, usability, security testing started playing their roles. But if you see in all these things, what is there is all about finding defects, all about ensuring that the product which goes to the market is defect-free. When we have to hire the people who will perform this job, what are the things we really look forward to? We really look forward to the person needs to have a strong domain experience. I'm from a healthcare industry. Anyone who comes in my industry, I really look forward to any QA or any tester, he needs to have a strong healthcare knowledge. Similarly, people who are in the financial segment look forward to at least a person should have a strong financial knowledge. Then to write a very good test scenario, or he is able to debug those defects, we look forward to the logical and analytical knowledge of the person. The person needs to be process-oriented, technological savvy. A person should know all about what technology platform he has to work about. He needs to be technical. But one thing which really remains common is our mindset. It's all about go, no-go decision. A day before deployment, the management will ask the QA team, are you okay to make this product go to the market or this application get deployed on the production? So the whole focus is all about go, no-go decision. Now the fundamental question I would like to ask each one of you, is go, no-go decision good enough? And if not, why not? So there are many changes which are happening in the industry. The whole technology is evolving. Because of the technology is evolving, the software development process is getting evolved. We have, on one side, mainframe systems. On the other side, we have cloud, we have mobile, we have other new platforms coming. Now, we are moving from a legacy to agile, or to rapid development, or iterative, all these processes. Testing being the last leg of the journey, I'm sure you all will share this frustration with me. Does the development team really give you the code on time? Your release cycle is getting compressed. Instead of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, which was promised in the beginning of the project for you to do testing, probably you will get half of the time. And many times, even the delivery of the code is given to you in a staggered manner. Half of the code, half of the functionality is given on time, rest all of the half will go over a period of the time. And more than that, even a day before deployment, a couple of days before deployment, the changes start coming. And these changes are really genuine changes. These changes come from your customer, from your business partners. You can't say no to them. And more than that, the expectation is you have to really make this happen, really make this happen. Now, even with all the focus on the usability, the enhanced feature, that competitive market where your customers or your competitors are coming first before you, and really you are under pressure to ensure that all features work and you are able to complete the testing on time. And from a technology perspective, it's not about the evolution of the technology, it's the wide spectrum of the platforms. Whether you are working on iOS or Android, how many devices on that? How will you ensure that everything works on all varieties, all permutation combinations of those platforms, even localizations and other things? The question here again I will ask, is your go, no-go decision good enough, especially when you are moving from your quarterly release to monthly release, monthly to probably weekly release, weekly to a daily release? I remember 8 years ago when I was in Adobe, we used to make those Illustrator, InDesign, those Adobe products once a year. Now, every quarter, every month, and many times every day, there's a new release coming. You do not have the liberty of really testing that much the way you wanted to test. Now, is the go, no-go decision good enough in terms of those requirements which are changing, in terms of the variety of the testing you need to do, and also in terms of the last minute of changes which you have to make, maybe because of the defect or maybe because of the requirement changes. Yesterday, you saw that WTC Quality Report, and this I have taken from that report only. If you can see here, all these CXOs are really worried about inflexibility in job roles, in terms of difficulty in prioritizing the features, in terms of fear of changing the established processes. It takes too long to make a release, or it is all lack about budget. So 3 things which are really important in today's era from a testing point of view, which is speed, quality, and cost. We have handful of resources. Cost is very important. If you see, most of the companies these days are managed by the finance people, and cost is the first thing. Second, speed. Everyone really wants to do the job in a shorter time. And quality. Yes, quality is very, very important. We cannot afford to make a release with defects. So from the emerging practices, development practices, there are many, but I have just picked top 4 in my view. First one is the test-driven development using Agile, the continuous integration and continuous delivery, development using the global virtual teams, and all the tools for efficiency, productivity improvement. Let's take about Agile Transformation. Based on my experience in USG, we have on one side all our claims engine on mainframe, and all our other consumer-facing applications are either on the mobile, on cloud, and everything. So we have a wide spectrum. We are moving from waterfall to Agile. It's not that you train all your team and you are Agile ready. You really need to have Agile Transformation. So in Agile Transformation, it's all about collaboration. Collaboration between the development, between the QA team, and with the operations project management team. And once you have established the collaboration, then you have to have the governance or the control. Once the governance and control has been established, you will cultivate the best practices. And once your team start adopting the best practices, you can say that, yes, I have the Agile competency in my organization. Similarly, in the CICD, also where you are making builds regularly. And once you are making the builds regularly, it is also being expected you are testing your builds regularly. It may be tested automatically. All these points which I am bringing, why I am bringing? Because I really feel the QA role is changing because of all these things happening in the industry. So what are the expectations from the QA. Now, the first and foremost is obviously to find and prevent the defects. I'll just share one incident with you. If someone, or even I go to my boss and tell them that I have found this defect and I feel this product cannot go to deployment tomorrow because of this important defects, do you think what will be his reaction? He will say, that's good, you have found, but I need this to be fixed. The role of a QA is not to just raise red flag, which was the case earlier. It is all about make it happen. You have to fix it and ensure that despite of last-minute defects being found, you are working with your development partners, fixing it, ensuring the regression of that, and still meeting the release timelines. With all CICD, the role, the QA or the testing will happen continuously. It will not stop. There is no break period. So you have to have your automation scripts running continuously and ensuring, despite of builds being produced every hour, every day, your testing is continuously happening. Similarly, there's another thing. Everyone says that who is accountable for quality? Everyone is accountable for quality. But when the first incident comes after deployment, where the first finger goes, has it been tested? Who was a tester on this project? So the quality team is the custodian of the quality. I mean, despite of that, everyone is equally accountable, but at the end of the day, it's a QA team which is accountable for this quality. And we have to really start looking beyond functional and non-functional testing. So let's come back to the role which is changing. If you see the mindset, earlier the mindset was my application, my project, my test scenarios based on the requirements, and also finding defects and avoiding all risk. That was the mindset. But now it is also in terms of, do I understand end-to-end business? Do I understand what this program is all about? Where this my application is one component of that. It's all about quality-centric. It's not about testing-centric. It's all about risk-seeking in terms of still identifying the risk and mitigating those risks. And it's all about, and very importantly, your flexibility and agility to make this happen. So that is the big mindset change which is happening in the industry. Similarly, from a skill perspective, it's not about just black box testing, testing in silos, doing manual testing, having the test strategy. It's also about your ability to really use all the tools and the utilities available, your ability to script, your ability to write about some of the automation scripts so that it can be done in less time. Similarly, awareness-wise, it's not about just domain and functional awareness. It's all about do you understand the complete architecture of the application? Are you able to identify the implication of the last-minute change or the defects which is being produced? What is the impact of that defect? With all these things, let's go back. This was the QA thing, the skills or the traits we were looking for when we were hiring the people in terms of the domain, knowledge, analytical, logical. But I think these are the additional things which we look forward to in terms of their scripting ability, in terms of their flexibility and agility. The interviews which we take these days for a QA role, we ensure the person is a great team player. It's not about finding the defects. It's all about his ability to work with the development team, with the BA team, with the SA team, to ensure that they come out with a solution and they are able to still meet the timelines. Similarly, you may be knowing one tool, you may be SME on that automation script, but in a couple of years, that tool will become obsolete. It's all about your ability or your exposure on all the tools and utility and your learnability to really start using any tool with the very least effort. And similarly, about your ability to identify a risk and mitigate the risk. I hope I'm able to make my point in front of you. I will end my conversation with this thing, which I strongly feel is the game-changing thing, is QA should be the street lamp who should put light on the risk, not a traffic lamp about a go, no-go decision. It is no more about whether this product is pass or fail, or this product has a good quality or not. It's all about your agility, flexibility to identify the risk, even ability to find out the impact of the risk, and ability to mitigate that risk. And that's where the whole game is changing. Thank you.
We spoke about the changing scenarios for the QA now. So considering the release cycle for 2 to 3 weeks, and everybody is talking about automation should play a key role and all that. So how do you think, when it comes to automation, you have regression suites needs to be executed on 3-week cycle or whatever it is, and also the automating the upcoming features in that particular sprint is also a key to accommodate the speed. So how do you think that it is possible in a current scenario?
Yeah, sure. N-1 sprint scenarios. I think things have changed now. People have started doing automation within the same sprint itself. There are tools available. There are tools available where you can really do or write your script while doing your manual testing, so that at least in the next sprint, you have the regression test bed, automatic regression test bed available. It has become almost mandatory to have those automation completed within the same sprint rather than doing it N-1. But this is definitely a great point, and this has become a necessity, and without tools and utilities, you cannot do that.
Gemini. If we look at the supply side of this, we would notice that there is an inherent resistance in developers coming into the QA side and vice versa. What you are saying is we need to break that down, because inherently we'll be looking for more and more dev, if not skills, at least competencies to get that. So which essentially means rebranding what testing is, right? So I mean, what are your views on that? How will we find these guys?
Sure, you're very right. Initially, I remember a few years ago, people who were probably not good in programming in their college days used to select testing as their career. That was a trend few years ago. But if you see, I think that is, you can't afford to have people in your team performing the testing role with no ability to script, with no ability to write. So it is very important for any tester to know at least some scripting language. More than that, I think he needs to be aware about all the tools and the utilities available in the market. It is very important for them to be a fast learner, able to learn, and there are tools available where you don't need really a very complex programming skill. You can still go ahead with a bare minimum hand-holding, you can write the skills. Also, coming back to your question, whether a development playing the QA role, QA playing the development role, yes, if you go by the definition of the Agile and all this thing where the role change happens, I think we are still far away from reality in terms of making that happen. I have few teams where we have started playing the role, but in the long run, the motivation factor comes in. I mean, development will still perform QA for a couple of sprints or couple of instances, but his heart is somewhere else. Similarly, QA will not be able to compete with the development skills because he is also not that great in that skill. So that challenge still remains the same. I think another important factor is the collaboration, which is really very important. I mean, everyone can play their role, but we really need to collaborate in a big manner.
And I'm coming from Robert Bosch. My question to you is, now that we see so many overlap of roles, especially between QA and QC, how do you ensure independence of their work, which means that the QA does his job best and the QC does their job best, in spite of this marriage of the two of the time?
Sure. I think what I have seen in my industry, in my company, I'll talk about this. QA role is more a governance. I don't think QA, QC, they will establish the process, they will audit the process, they will also ensure that the QC team is doing those root cause analysis or trend analysis, predictability, and other things are doing. I don't think they are somewhere overlapping with each other. They are supplementing their things, but they are not trying to play each other's role, in my opinion. The focus of the quality assurance team is ensure that you have best practices, which are you adopting in your team. And there may be best practices in other teams within the organization. They will probably help you in terms of pointing you to you can take those best practices from some other teams within the organization or among the industry. But it's all about making each other successful. I mean, I remember that you cannot be successful by doing best of the best. You can only be successful by really having a big collaboration with other teams. It's all about working in a very matrix type of an organization.
Tools coming up, and still we have so many tools there and so much scope for automation. What is the scope left out for manual testing or for scope for manual testers in this new era?
I remember yesterday one of the speakers also spoke about that. Despite of all this automation coming, automation improving from X percentage to Y percentage, I think the scope of manual testing still remains the same. But it will remain. Will it remain forever? I'm not sure. I mean, with more and more automation coming, with more and more need for automation coming, I think it's better, it's in our interest to have that skill. You yourself will feel happy about it by doing the things much faster using automation. You will feel more motivated because you will be doing new things with your time. But if you go on using the same manual testing for doing the same thing, probably that will not be motivating you. I'll highly encourage we should move on using automation scripting wherever possible.
But many of times it happens that the risks, though they are highlighted upfront in the beginning of the STLCs, but it is not received well. So in fact, even if you see the principles of software engineering by Roger Pressman, which we all study in engineering colleges. So he says that when you start a project, the risks are the highest, but when the projects are actually implemented, we neither show any risks to the customer at the beginning of the project, nor internally we document any risks. So that is one contradiction when it comes to practice. And second thing is, I mean, with all this agile, there has been a consciousness of the left shift approach, which is basically involving testers in the early phases of the life cycle. But this concept has always been there, even in the waterfall model, or even in the iterative or V2, but it was rarely implemented because of the costs. So people say, I mean, it was typically a project management approach that the testing is at the later phases of life cycle. I don't have budget to involve a tester at the upfront and things like that. So there needs to be a conscious shift and recognition of the testers being involved early in the life cycle and advocate this to the customers as well. Because we hear this in almost all the seminars, but then in the IT implementations across projects, across companies, I think there still needs to be a lot to be done.
Sure. So one thing which I really want to talk here, the practical is different than theory. I mean, with all due regards to Pressman and other books, the reality is different. I remember my earlier days when one of my team members used to say, I have found 100 defects. Good, you have made a century. But as a business owner, as an application owner, I mean, what is my priority? My priority is to make this release go out of my door with good quality, with minimum number of defects. With all my competitors also coming to the market with a similar features, I want to be first to the market. So I may still go ahead with the release with a known risk. I think this risk identification, the risk of, so there are two types of risk we are talking. The risk which you were talking, or which was there in the Pressman software engineering book, is all about project risk. I'm talking about risk related to defect. If there is a defect and I still go to production with that defect, what are the possibilities that this will hit or this will stop my operation. And what are the workarounds still around that I can still manage to make the customer happy, or at least I'll make him aware of this, that I have to make a release with this known risk. The other point you brought, shift left and other things, great points. Everyone use it, we should use it. But at the end of the day, the message I want to give it to you, the QA team cannot work in silos. They have to have a strong collaboration. And it's all about win-win, working together in collaboration with the dev team, SA team, BA team, so that we really still make the product go out of our door with good quality.
We have been hearing about the Agile, and we still keep on telling that, the tester's role or the testing fraternity's role is not getting diluted, blah, 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 everything we say. But as we go ahead and look at, the perfect Agile world, we see that the testing people are supposed to have 5 more additional characteristics to adopt Agile, whereas the developer is supposed to have only 1 characteristic to Agile for get aligned to the QA. Which means that it's difficult for the tester to develop 5 traits, right? Whereas the developer can learn 1 more, or he change his mindset and enter into QA. So developer's job is easy to get adjusted to the new requirement, whereas the tester's job is more difficult. In another context, we are telling that, this person was not good at development, that is why he has entered testing. It means that he has got lesser skills or lesser delivery abilities. That is why a lesser skill or delivery ability in testing is accepted, right? With there itself, we have downgraded to some extent. Now we are asking him to learn 5 more things, which is not possible for him. So whereas a developer, by changing his mindset, he can be very successful in Agile. In such a case, are we still saying that the tester's role is not getting diluted?
So I will say tester role is not getting diluted, it's getting more complicated, it's getting more elevated. That's what I strongly feel about. Yes, you are very much right. Tester needs to have those additional 5 traits and other things. The expectation from testers has increased many folds. And you are also right in making that statement. Developer probably needs to have 1 or 2 additional traits. But yes, tester role has changed 360 degree. That's yep. I strongly feel about.
So we have time for one last question, and the gentleman with the blue shirt.
There's one lady behind.
Okay, so we'll take 2 last questions then.
Hi, I'm John. Now that Agile has become a trend, teams have started delivering in every sprint. But we automation engineers have this challenge that though we started with UI automation, we eventually want to move into the API or the service level. There's a good amount of resistance that comes from the QA or the manual test team. They still feel comfortable if what happens is seen on the UI level. They're not all that comfortable with an API level automation test. So what is your take on that? How do we get their buy-in?
Sure. I mean, again, if you start mentoring, coaching your QA team at the entry level in terms of make them aware of these tools, you will be more successful than person who have already been in a manual testing role for a few years, now asking them to learn automation. So I think we really need to plan ahead of the time, and at the entry level, we really need to train our QA resources to learn those skills. But it is definitely required.
But even if we have an external automation team that comes in and helps a manual test team just for the automation part, the QA team is not all that comfortable to take a buy-in from the sense that, okay, this product has been tested. They still want to see it happen on the UI layer.
They have to change. I mean, if they have to survive, they have to change. I mean, they cannot survive long with this attitude.
I agree there is a left shift, and QA needs to change many folds, and indeed we have changed as a QA many folds. Now even not at unit testing, not at automation, and all those things they are capable of, because it's not something rocket science if developer can write code. So the only difference in between QA and developer ideally is you are writing Java code or .NET code and I am writing Selenium code. Otherwise QA is everywhere, indeed earlier than developer. But the thing is now my QA are capable of even telling to the developer, not at the application level or not at the end-to-end level, that boss, there is a defect. They're going and telling at the architecture level, boss, you are implementing a queue here, for example, and this will be the defect in the architecture, and this is a defect at the design part of here. So now when QA is telling these things, to whom he is telling? He is telling to the master architect or the architects, because I have my QA architect. But the
key problem we face here is when such comments come from QA, the acceptance for the development community or the developers is kind of difficult to have. So can you throw some light how to make a mark at a much stronger level?
Sure.
Because QA are capable now. It's not difficult even. It's not difficult to train them. But how to train their mindset and how to improve their
Sure. So
mark.
things are changing. I mean, I can talk about my company where all the SMEs of those application products are from the QA role. The QA knows end to end. He is really the SME, and the credibility, the respect is changing. I mean, you can if you have to pick 2-3 subject matter experts in any product, any application, I can bet you it will be from the QA role, not from the development role. And things have started already changing from that perspective. The perception, the respect of QA is changing in almost all the industry. But I agree with you, this was not the scenario few years back, and it was very difficult for QA to get position or respect among their peers.
Right, thank you.